So before we start, let me explain briefly the rules that we are having here. So we are having a panel of our speakers. Unfortunately, quite few of speakers still present here. Ruslan, I need your password. Sorry.
Yes.
Yeah, we have a set of questions. We will just announce these questions, and who is ready to answer the question, please raise your hand, and we will give you a microphone, and you become able to answer the question. Okay? If someone after it wants to add something or disagree with the statement, the same. Please raise your hand, and then we will continue the discussion.
And it's not only for speakers; it's for all.
Yeah, actually, we are quite limited with the time. It looks like we will not have a time to cover all questions, but we will try to do it. Okay, so it's the first experience of such format. We are having two assistants. Please raise your hands. So who are having microphones? So I kindly ask you to raise your hand and wait till assistant will come to you with a microphone and to use it. Okay. Okay, so let's get started. So the first question that we have gotten, so what are the main issues or problems with Scala ecosystems you are experienced? Who will be the first? Guys, it's question to speakers, so probably, maybe, yeah, we are having Vitaly.
I think the main problem is that most popular Scala frameworks are written for Java developers. No, I mean Akka and Spark. It's very Java friendly, so they don't implement some advanced features for Scala developers.
Cool. Someone wants to add something? Guys, please come closer to us. No, please come, because we should recognize you like speakers, just not participants. And that is why your seats are here. So, Michal, okay, Martin.
I don't necessarily agree. Well, one example is, of course, Spark is not really a framework that aspires to be functional framework. That's true, but everything else, I guess, is pretty much well beyond Java level. Even Akka becomes typed right now, but even at times when it wasn't typed, which means recently. There was a lot going on in the Akka itself that was, well, Scala idiomatic or idiosyncratic to Scala. Or things like Slig are totally different than what we have in Java world or what we had in Java world. So yeah, that's the counter-argument. I don't necessarily agree that's a problem. Even if when you use Java libraries, you more often do not try to wrap them in something more functional in Scala and work around the deficiencies of Java, I know, type system or API conventions. So I don't necessarily agree that this is a problem or the biggest problem. What I would say, maybe tooling. Is tooling a problem in Scala?
So yeah, I think tooling being a problem is an open statement. I think it's easy to say. There's such a diversity in build tools and levels of difficulty, and IntelliJ works pretty well, but it's difficult to get other build tools. The documentation sometimes sucks. My counter to that would be, right now I think build tools do suck, but I think there is a huge effort and a huge acknowledgement by the community that they suck, and a huge number of people working to actively make it better right now. So John Pretty, the LSP working group, this tools working group, which has involvement from everybody, from TypeSafe to Scala Center to Enzyme to IntelliJ, IDEA, JetBrains. everybody's involved, everybody's working actively to try and address this stuff. So I'm actually really excited. It is a problem, but it's something I'm excited about because I think it's going to change.
I think there's also an issue that Scala is more fragile in terms of versioning. So Scala tends to break compatibility more easily than Java, which is a good thing. But then you have like this project which is fixed in some 2.12, and then it's really a big deal. You have to switch everything to 2.13, including all libraries, and that's a little bit harder than what you have experienced in Java, I think.
Yeah, so it looks like we have completed with this. Yeah, let's go to the next one. So, are anybody actually use those freestyle tagless F stuff? Please use microphone. Yeah.
Okay, so yes. So we are using it on production, and so usually those questions are. I will just be here. So I like to be in front of people, more or less. So yes, we are using that in production, and so some of those microservices that we are using use this kind of approach. We have also a nice testing environment that we are trying to pull out using this kind of approach. So yes, it's pretty new, so we don't know everything about that kind of approach, but it helps with this separation of concern thing. So yeah, I hope that I answered that question. I don't know what others think about that.
If I may add one thing, yeah, these things are being used in production, but to go back to previous question in context of this one, there are some problems in the tooling with this kind of approach. For instance, at least for me, IntelliJ doesn't work that well with this freestyle macro expansions and so on. So that's a bit of a problem. The other part of the problem, I think, is that freestyle, for instance, and that's a problem with maybe not so much the tooling, but Scala ecosystem a bit. So, for instance, freestyle is written, as far as I know, by or with Scala meta macro annotations, which are deprecated, as far as I know, as for now, right? And so we have like three competing macro systems. Is a fair thing to say, more or less, yeah. And we just don't know which one to use. And developers of things like freestyle just basically they are caught in the corner, more or less, because they chose what's deprecated solution right now. And it's not an old legacy library. It's pretty new. So I think that's a bit of a problem. The rate of expansion or the rate of experiments in Scala world is sometimes can be head spinning.
So just a quick one. I agree. So I wouldn't use it in a big like monolith project because it's changing so fast. You won't be able to catch up with all those changes. Even freestyle, the one I used during today's presentation is already not up to date. I haven't got time to really update it to the latest version. So it's really changing so fast. So you need to have like small modules to just play with them. And so yeah, that's a correct, valid argument. Thanks.
And Yaroslav, yeah, or who?
What you said, it's connected to free, but not connected to tagless, because that's why you should use tagless as a first class approach and then interpret if you need to free, if you need to see the structure. But, and you avoid all these problems, this macro expansion, etc., etc.
Yeah, that's correct. And tagless is a fancy name, but many people use that even without noticing that. the people who really love those kind of abstractions and abstracting over the effects. So that's nice.
And I want to say that, as I know, Dubi is like one of shine example of free is moving to tagless.
That's true, but I'm not sure if people actually notice that Slick is the Slick we all know is the perfect example of free, because DBIO in Slick is just an implementation of free monad pattern. It's just, you know, it's not just implemented using cats or Scala Z or something. It's own implementation, but that's actually what it is. It's free in disguise. So yeah, Dubi is a perfect example, but Slick, which is very popular, is example of this approach as well.
Okay.
I think we can ask first who uses standard monads like cat and who uses standard monads from cat in projects. Standard monads. Aha. Oh, so how this can be? So who not uses standard monads from cat?
Okay, so it looks like
Oh,
50-50.
50% auditory not use standard models of cards. Okay. Next 50%, are you use own effects interpreters? Who wrote the effect interpreter? Any type, anybody? Oh, 3 persons. 4. So, and who uses ready effects interpreters?
Only
Plus
a
2.
bit, yeah.
Okay, so we see some representation. So 50% standard monads, 50% not monads at all, and 5%, maybe 10, it's effect interpreters and vice versa.
Okay, good. Kiva. Sorry,
No, it's
Ruslan, not mine. I'm having this. So let's move further. The next question is the author of programming language, why it will be fundamentally better than Scala? Yeah, probably so.
Apparently
Alex
this question
is
is
a
to
better
me.
person.
Well, I'm an author of a programming language called Laska, which is basically a work in progress, not a complete language. And fundamentally better is very complex term which requires ordering, which I'm not aware of. So I can't say which how it's going to be fundamentally different rather than better, I'd say. Laska is kind of family of languages combined under one single syntax, which is kind of simplified Scala. With indentation-based syntax, you may think of Python or Haskell / Idris, where you can have several ways to type your programs. So if you don't care about types, you can run your programs dynamically typed with runtime type checking, or you can have a simple Hindley-Milner style time system with global type inference, which is important. Or you can go refinement types or even dependent types if I implement those. That's in 2 words. Well, I used to have it, which is a funny story, but I tend to think that language server protocol implementation would be better.
Okay. Okay, thank you for your answer, Alex. Let's move further. The next question is, many developers hate actors because they are not composable. What do you think about this? Have you seen Scala Z8 with actors G. Dejo's presentation? So
You can throw 3 slides from one.
yeah, please.
Yes. Because I look at the questions,
Microphone.
I open this presentation and prepare slides which. 1 moment. Oh yes. Here, the right is akka, or right or left? 1 moment.
It depends.
Okay, the left is akka, the right is Scala Z8. Oh, parallelism, concurrent state. Next. And persistence. In the rest of this talk, he built some analog of distributed computer. It's not interesting, but I guess it can be interesting. Okay, so if anybody, I know that we have two common here, actor haters and actor lovers. So I ask maybe 2 voices from 2 different parts.
Okay, so I'm definitely a Akka lover, and I think that this presentation by Digos and many other his tweets and presentations are a bit tongue-in-cheek. Of course, the left and the right parts are not equivalent. The Akka works in a different environment and can do other things, not only the ones that that the author wrote about. About composability, I don't think this is like a very important topic in practical applications. Like every time I used Akka, I was very happy not using anything more than simple actors connected to other actors and eventually a cluster. So I think that this question here that because that we hate actors because they are not composable is like, I don't know, hating something for a very small and not really useful feature.
Thank you, Marcin. Okay, Carl, please.
Yeah. I'm positive for Akka too also, so I hope that's not too bad. No, I think that Akka is kind of copying a concept that has been in use in Erlang for decades and has proved to be useful. So for a certain class of programs, I think it is an approach that's already proven to be useful, and I think it's a good idea to pursue it, but it's not a tool for everything.
Yeah, great. No silver bullets. Okay, Valentin, please. Yeah.
So you might have noticed I'm more on the FP hardcore typed side of the problem. And basically my problem with actors is not really that they do not compose, is that you don't know what it is. Basically what John DeGose says in the beginning of his talk, which is very funny, by the way, is that an actor is really a partial function from any to unit. That's a type that says roughly nothing. So my main problem with actors is that I am not smart enough to reason about them. I have to open the code to see where the messages are flowing and so on. And with the purely functional approach of Scala Z8 I/O, you know from the type signatures what each function will do, and there is no surprise. So you don't need a debugger and so on and so forth. Voilà, that's it.
Okay, thank you, Valentin. I see Alex wants to add.
I just wanted to add that you're not limited to either side. You can definitely combine approaches. So actors as untyped functions are tend to be useful in a distributed environment, in a dynamic distributed environment. And inside your program, inside your single node, you can always use something like typed actors, by the way, and Akka streams or ScalaZ streams. So you're not limited to either side. You can use both where their strengths are can be useful.
Okay.
Okay. So
thank you.
One more thing. Thanks for this this comment. I wanted to add upon that. So Akka is just a transport layer. So this is what we tend to forget. So this is something that just models some environment in which we are doing our computations. So main problem with Akka is that people tend to put business logic in actors. And this is, of course, a problem which is connected to the documentation of Akka, because that's what they trying to show there, right? But if we just use Akka in just simple places when we just need some kind of transport layer, right, between the nodes, or the real transport in a big application, then it's something that we can really think about. And of course, typed actors will help a lot with that, right? So there is no black and white answer to that.
Thank you, Michal. It's clearer.
I want to add that personally I'm more on the functional side, but I agree with you that Akka is just a transport layer. So I've tried to implement a monad for untyped actors, and to use it in our project. Yeah, it sounds very strange, but actually it works. And I'll try to bench it. Maybe we could combine both solutions.
Thank you, Vitaly. Okay, it looks like no more additional opinion. Let's go further. Ultimate Scala build tool. Who do we handle? How we do handle builds? Any volunteers?
One moment. Maybe here. No, it's just a question without. So
yeah, maybe it looks like obvious, but still. The question is asked.
To me, there is no ultimate build tool. Different users have different needs. You want anything from, I just want it to build simply on my box and describe it easily, or I want to manage packaging, I want to manage deployment, I want to do my build in a distributed fashion because my build is so big that it takes hours.
Right.
I think the thing is, we actually almost need to abstract from this, which is what the build server protocol and other thoughts and actions and thinkings is all about.
Right. Thank you, Rory. Someone wants to add? Okay, Michal.
Yeah, so ultimate build tool will be a tool which is very constrained. So my problem with build tools and build SBTs I see is that people try to do magical things which I don't understand. And this should be just dependency management and building stuff. That's all it should be. Any magic inside the build tool means that your design is somehow problematic. This would be my approach. So ultimate build tool is something easier than SBT, in my opinion. Marcin?
Well, there's not much more that I can add. Well, basically I agree with you, but still I keep in mind that there are, as Rory said, there are different problems. For instance, you want to push your jars to Maven Central, or you want to publish documentation, I don't know, somewhere. Or you want, I don't know, to synchronize with some other build server, so on, so on. So, well, simplicity, of course, is the key, I guess, in this manner, but still you don't want to forget that there are different, and here I'm siding with Rory, I guess, that there are different needs, and that's it. So ultimate build tool probably cannot exist. It's some kind of a holy grail, which is mythical more, I guess, than a real thing. You probably need more than one build tool or more than one tool to handle all these needs. Maybe that's the right approach, but well, we don't know yet. We're not there yet, maybe.
Okay, thank you, Marcin. And Alex wants to add, and then Volodymyr.
Yeah, that was actually it was my question, and I wanted to add more question to discuss, because Current situation with in Scala built infrastructure is that we have de facto standard SBT tool, which is looks like nobody is happy with because it's stuck with some particular version of Ivy, which is outdated and it's slow, and bug with a slow jar resolution is 6 years old and it's still open. And there are several separate build tools created, 3 actually, as far as I know: CBT, Mill by Lee, and apparently Fury by John Pretty, which kind of weird. Yeah, and well, that's Google and Twitter stuff. Because so my question was, how do we handle this? Do we stuck with SBT? Because I have this feeling that SBT is kind of killing Scala, because everyone has a lot of pain with SBT rather than Scala. That's question, open question, rhetorical.
So,
who wants to answer this question? Carl?
I think it's really a bad situation that we have like this question, well, what sucks more, SBT or Maven, or do we go to some special thing that nobody knows and nobody supports? And I think it would be really highly desirable to have really one tool that we can just rely on. Like in other environments it exists like that, and it's really a job to do the homework to get either Maven or SBT to work, that we can really say, okay, that's something that we use, and we have like big environments, and it's really a pain in the ass if we have different tools to integrate and then build the Jenkins build for complicated landscape. And that should really be something that works, and then people should use Emacs and VI and Atom and IDEA and Eclipse and whatever they want to develop, but have this tool work. That's really desirable. Thank you.
Thank you, Carl. So,
yeah, one more comment from my side. Looks like a very important question, because almost everyone has something to say here. And I just wanted to add that there will be no one build tool for Scala ever, I think. And one of the reasons for that is that different organizations, for example, will require different tools. Like in the case of Wix, we have, for example, 800 engineers, and we have a scale when we need to make the builds really, really fast and distributed, and we'll never get it with an ultimate build tool like SBT, even if it's fully written or whatever, or with Maven. And we have to go, for example, Bazel way, when the builds are inherently like incremental across all the projects in the company and stuff like that. So it's not, I think it's never going to happen. And if you're a small organization, you will not need that. You don't need Bazel or Pans or any other fancy tool that Google is building, and you will be just okay with having simple stuff.
Okay, thank you.
Can I add one last comment to this?
Yeah, Rory, please.
So I think two things I would say to this. Firstly, I agree that Pants and Bazel are bigger tools for bigger projects, but I'm hoping there's a way we can make, simple things should be simple, right? A standard user should be able to check out a project and build it without thinking about it. And I wonder whether there's some, way we can bring this stuff together. I also know the SBT guys are working to make their stuff simpler to use, but they've made a platform where they can do anything, and we do everything from compiling simple Scala files to native compilation to packaging to deployment. The second comment I'd like to make is follow the Scala tooling group. There's a huge, get involved in the discussions, put your voice in, because there's many voices from many different levels trying to solve these problems and fix it for the general. So get involved.
Clear, thank you. Someone wants to add? Ruslan, okay. Ruslan, it's near you.
No, about SBT, I think it's ok that you have a tool which can handle all and compiler, and you cannot think but just search SBT plugin for all what it is possible. And in general, if SBT will be changed, I will cry, because it will break many real projects. So I guess from that what I can say is that in the biology we have such thing as temp evolution, and temp evolutions are quite becoming bigger when some taxonomy reach the limits of their niche, and it come to other niche or adapt. And here we can see example of in technical evolution example of this.
Okay, thank you. Please give us a second. Okay, so let's go further. Next question. So now Dotty is official, so in Scala 3. How to avoid Python 3 success? What do you think about alternative?
Yes, it's somebody want to say something before.
So no specific answers. So open discussion. Carlo wants to be first.
I think Python did something that they tried to support the 2 version of Python like forever, and that is very expensive, and I don't know if the Scala community can actually afford it. So I guess there will be some deprecation of Scala 2 sometime after Scala 3 is there, and people will either leave Scala or move to Scala 3. Thank you.
Thank you, Carl. So who will be the next? Vitaly? Michal?
I have a general question. Who here is still on Scala 2.11? Yeah, there are always somebody. So it's how old is it? It's very old right now. So I don't think it's very possible that we can just move to Scala 3, especially when there will be some breaking changes and there are plugin problems or things like that. Macros, you name things. Many projects and libraries are on this. So, for example, migration from Scala 2.11 to 2.12 and migration from Spray to Akka HTTP, all those things are interconnected. And in big projects, it's very, very hard to migrate and maybe even not desirable.
Clear. Thank you, Michal. Vitaly?
Even now, Dati looks much better in some places than Scala. So about Python, I've worked with Python, and Python 3 is not much better than Python 2. It's a very small difference, just generators, I think, and it's all. And Dati has a new model and type system, so Dati will be much better. So we don't need to avoid. There will be no such problem.
Thank you, Vitaly.
Yeah, I think in the Scala ecosystem we're already used to breaking changes all the time. So I think we're much better equipped as a community to move over to a new breaking version because we already are doing that all the time. Even if we're behind on some cases.
Clear. Thank you, Justin. Yeah, thank you. And Rory?
I think the thing is, yes, 2.11, 2.12 was painful. They're working very hard to make 2.12, 2.13 less painful, and that's a move towards, if you look at the changes they're making, it's a move towards what will be in Dotty. So they're working very hard with Scala Fix and so on to try and ease the transition. But the fight we're always fighting as software developers is, I want everything to stay the same because it works, and I want all the new things. And you as language developers, they have to find a balance between these two, and it's going to hurt someone. But I think we're working hard to try and ease those transitions. And I think, but there will be big changes, and there's big changes for good reasons as well. And macros, something that somebody said right in the beginning, is one of those hard ones. Yes, there are 3 versions of it, and that's painful. And the reason is because during that time, we've evolved our understanding of how to write macros, what a macro system should be like. In fact, the first macros were really a hack within the compiler. It was like, oh, we can do this, right? And then we're trying to turn that into a real stable macro system. And then we want to say, well, actually, you can do hacking in the compiler, but we also want to move forward. And these balances are incredibly hard. And actually, I spent a lot of time in the past few weeks having long discussions with people about where the trade-offs are, where the pain points are, and how you make it easier for people. And just be aware the community is trying to do that as well.
Okay.
Just wanted to add a few cents to what Roy said. In making Android applications, we're still using 2.11 because even moving to 2.12 is very painful. There are some parts in our, well, it is theoretically possible, but if in my case, some parts of our code will not compile under Gradle with Scala 2.12. So if this is so painful, if this is so hard, then if we have to use Scala 3 at some point, I don't see it completely. How can we migrate? And if not, then it means that for the next at least few years we will use deprecated technology. So yeah, it will be very painful for a few years, and I really hope that when Scala 3 is out, we will, as a community, work hard to ease this migration. But I'm like very negative about it. It won't work.
Thank you, Maciej. Clear. So I propose to move further. Several questions ahead, but we are limited with the time. So statement you want to discuss. Is Scala too difficult for most Java, PHP, and JS developers? What do you think about this? Or is it just a matter of learning and teaching? What do you think, Michal?
Yes, it is too difficult. It has too many features, it has too many approaches, so different talks, even on one conference, can just suggest different approaches to the same problems, different libraries, the build tool, different build SBTs, and this hybrid of object-oriented and functional, which is not very clear. No real good practices anymore. So yeah, it is difficult for those developers.
How we can overcome it?
How can we overcome it?
Yeah. No,
I think that the
recommendation.
like the compiler flags, like linting, like remover, word remover, and all those things that should be more standardized in my opinion, so that we can make the beginner Scala developers aware of what are the problems, the main biggest problems, right? Like the implicit pimp my class patterns that every beginner uses in the first few days, and things like that.
Okay, so.
Well, I don't agree at all with you. Well, first of all, to say that Scala is too difficult for Java developers is to say that they are somehow inferior to Scala developers, right? It's not the case. The Java developers are normal, educated developers as we are. They just happen to use different language and can, if they want to, move to Scala, right? It is matter of learning and teaching, but everything in life is matter of learning and teaching, right? And about what you said about practices and so on, well, there are best practices. We are more and more aware of them in Scala world. Scala is a relatively new language after all, so it's still, well, being developed, so to say, I guess. And it will always be, because language evolves and we want it to evolve. And you know, our understanding of large-scale development is bigger and bigger, I guess. And about linter and the compiler and so on, it's not necessarily a good thing, right? At the same time, we need to decide whether we want a broad language, a language which you can experiment on, or express yourself in, or you want this very strict language which is, you know, suited to or tailored to one implementation, like Go is. Go has everything you said in the compiler, formatter, linter, everything needs to be in one style. Is it a good thing? No, I don't think it's a good thing, because it makes the you know, the expressiveness or development of this language too constrained. So it's a balance. It's a trade-off about being too constrained and being too, well, hard, some might say. But everything is matter of teaching and learning. Everything is. Everything in life is, you know, driving, cooking, whatnot. Scala is no different than that, and it's nothing to be worried about, I would say.
Okay, Martin, thank you for your opinion. Also, Alex, yeah, a couple of words.
I just wanted to mention that Scala is kind of superset of all languages, because you learn Scala once and you basically forget some parts of Scala and you get different languages.
Yeah.
Just forget about type and you
learning.
get JavaScript, forget about something else, you get, forget about everything and you get PHP and etc. So, and if you will look into what actual JavaScript is evolving now with TypeScript, it's basically Scala. If you take a look at what's Swift, Apple's Swift is, it's basically Scala, and etc. So it's like superset language. You learn it once and you know every language.
Thank you, Alex. And Carl?
Yeah, I think at least we observe this issue when we have like projects and then we talk to manager, we want to use Scala. Then they say, oh, do you find Scala developers? No? Okay, do Java. And so I think as a community, it's important to be kind of open to new users and not just present them with the most hardcore monad and co-monad stuff, so they run away if they are not among the best 1% of mathematics guys, yeah. And I think it's important to be a friendly community and to teach and to learn, and I think for decent developers, it's reachable.
Right, exactly. And we are almost out of time. Ruslan, you finish, please, this question and this discussion. Unfortunately, we cannot continue because lack of time. Sorry.
Okay, I want to raise a hand who use abstract override in your code. 1. Oh, 7. Okay, who remember what is it? Or who not remember? Oh, so I teach Scala from time, and problem is that it is difficult to find patch where I can tell about one feature, does not tell about other feature. Yeah. It's very hard, and I don't know how to fix this. But this is a matter of teaching and learning.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. We covered 7 questions. Feature reacting programming languages. So. My proposition, so to do break shorter and this last question, okay? So it's 3 minutes just for this one, last one. What are the feature? What is the future of reactive programming libraries in Scala?
Maybe also wanted to. I just saw. No.
No. Someone. Any volunteers to answer? Okay.
Can you give some examples? What library,
Not now. Real world. So, the candidate for the next.
I would say that the future is bright.
Okay, good. It's a very, very good ending. Thank you so much, our speakers.